Hello world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are. Greetings from Bangladesh. Area L5, Division L, District 41, Toastmasters International. I am Jamal Jamy, Area L5 Director, District 41, and the moderator of today's program. I would like to have the pleasure to welcome you all to the life-changing event today, Champions Talk 2020, episode number 3, the magical power of storytelling. What a great opportunity for today. Listening to the world champion of public speaking, a workshop that may change the way of thinking your life. Learn the most required skill you need for your career success, from the CEO to the student, the profession, whatever you choose, presentation, public speaking are really important ones. Now, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our speaker, host, and the district division leaders. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our speaker today, Beverly, 2019 World Champion of Public Speaking, Storyteller, Keynote Speaker, Trainer, World Traveler with us. A big round of applause for him. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our very own District Director, Nimish Joseph, DTM. Thank you, sir, for joining us. I would like to acknowledge the presence of another District Director, District 38 Director, Basha Makram from USA. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our very own Division Director, Distinguished Toastmaster Ghulam Dastagir Jani. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Leaders, professionals, speakers, and Toastmasters, as well as non-Toastmasters. Good evening, everyone. Now it's time to acknowledge the presence. To hand over the floor to the host of the event, Mainuddin Ahammed, DCP Support Team, District 41. Mainuddin Ahammed.
Thank you, Jamal Ahmed Jamy, for some wonderful interaction with all the district leaders. There is a saying, champions are not made in the gyms. Champions are made from something they have deep inside them, a desire, a dream, a vision. By one of the legendary boxer, Mr. Muhammad Ali said this. With this word, I'd like to start the session. We used to see the world champion of public speaking on the YouTube channel in 5 months, 6 months back. But the corona pandemic situation brings some blessings for us. And we have the opportunity to listen to the world champion of public speakers. When you listen to world, the champion, it motivates, inspires, and influences us to achieve goals. They share their real life stories, passion, hardworking, commitment, dedication that help them to become the world champions. Every year, hundreds, thousands of members from thousands of clubs in different parts of the world participate in speech contest, and out of them, only one become the world champion. Dear leaders, we have started the series early 2020 with 2 world champion of public speaking, Mark L. Brown, world champion of public speaking 1995, and Willie Jones, world champion of public speaking in 1997. And our second episode with Darren Lorix, world champion of public speaking 2001, was held in June 2020. This is time for our third episode with our current world champion of public speaker, Aaron W. Beverly. I believe you will enjoy the session, and we are expecting anyone from this group will become world champion of public speaking in coming days. With this word, I'd like to invite our very own district director, our motivation He is none other DTM Nimis Joseph. DTM Nimis Joseph.
Thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Mainuddin. I'm happy that you invited me for this special session by Toastmaster Aaron Beverly. I would like to invite Aaron to District 41 on behalf of all our members. I would also like to extend my invite to all guests. I can see people across the globe sitting here. I can see district directors and members from various districts joining in. And on behalf of entire District 41, I would like to invite you all to this session hosted by Division L team led by our distinguished Toastmaster Mainuddin and Jamaluddin Jamy. Friends, this is a new experience for all of us. You just witnessed Aaron Beverly's World Championship speech online. And very soon, in the next few days, we will witness the incoming champion delivering his speech virtually. I know that it's going to be a different state, a different experience for all of us. Especially for people like me, I was lucky that I got a chance to listen to Aaron at the international convention live on the stage. I'm thankful. I'm lucky for that. But this is going to be a different experience where all of us register because it's free. You all should attend, if possible, the World Championship of Public Speaking, because there are a lot of things to learn from every speech that we are going to listen. These are well-experienced speakers, and I'm sure today's talk will inspire you to improve your communication and leadership journey. We all join Toastmasters because of various reasons, and one reason is public speaking, to enhance our skills. But the world have taken us into a different direction. We try to improve our speaking skills virtually. And let's accept this new normal and try to explore the various fields or the various areas where we can improve over this virtual platform. I'm sure with the help of these activities where we will be able to network with excellent speakers, mentors from outside places, leaders from across the globe, we all will get enough opportunities to grow and learn through Toastmasters platform. So let us make use of the next 45-50 minutes in the best possible way. I request all our members who are silent, muted, and with their cameras off to make sure that you are attentive, you are watching the session and not running away here and there and skipping off this half of the session. Probably the best part or something that is waiting for you might come at any moment, which probably, and I do not want you to miss that particular part of this session. So on behalf of entire District 41, I would like to welcome all of you. I can see our Division L Director, Ghulam Dastagir Joni, and every other member. I would like to welcome you to this session and thank you, Aaron, for accepting our invite and joining us this night. Over to you, Toastmaster Mainuddin.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable speech. I have asked the introduction from our district director. This humble personality, I have seen very rare person, such a humble and soft-hearted man. He told me, Mainuddin, I don't need too much introduction. You just tell DTM name is Joseph. What a personality, and this is a great learning for us. So humble man he is. Let's have a big hand for him. Forward, I'd like to invite someone. One of the youngest district officer in District 41, youngest in terms of Toastmaster career. Within 1 year of his journey, the dedication he made for the country, for the community, and he visited most of the clubs in Bangladesh. I think he's one of the most visited Toastmasters in Bangladesh. And he's none other our own area L5 director, my successor, Toastmaster Jamal Uddin Jamy. He will moderate the whole session. Toastmaster Jamaluddin Jamy.
Thank you, Mainuddin Ahammed, for your wonderful introduction, though I don't deserve. let's make it a bit interactive, though we do have champion speaker and he is going to conduct the session. Before I invite him, let's make it a bit interactive. How many of you are here want to become public speaker in your life? Can you write on chat box that yes, I'd like to become public speaker or a storyteller, a good communicator or leader? Write down on the chat box. Right, I want to see me. Okay, okay. Yes, yes, me. Yes, 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 yes. That's great. That's great. A lot. Fine. That means it is your desire. It is your goal. And you have written it down. Once you have that black and white thing, I mean, you have written down something, that desire or that goals become your dream. I mean, it's written there. And APJ Abdul Kalam, the ex-president of India, says, your dream will not let you sleep. Your dream will not let you sleep. That means your dream will not let you sleep unless and until you become the public speaker. And today you have got the opportunity to listen to the speaker. I know there are a lot of people here today, those who are not Toastmasters. They might have that kind of question in your mind. What is Toastmaster? Why should I be a public speaker? And how can I develop my communication and leadership skill? Yes, for you, Toastmasters International is the largest platform in the world where you can practice your communication, your leadership, and public speaking skills through your active participation. I'd like to invite you to visit any of the club anywhere in the world. If you are not Toastmaster, visit and experience the changes that can you benefit out of it. Thank you very much. Now it's time to invite the momentum. I mean, the person is none other than the speaker of today's program, Beverly. Before I invite him, I'd like to talk about him. Really something I have written down. 2019 World Champion of Public Speaking, a storyteller, keynote speaker, trainer, world traveler. In August 2019, I mean this month, just 1 year back, Beverly emerged as the winner of the Toastmasters International Speech Contest, an annual public speaking competition that includes over 30,000 competitors worldwide, performing the speech entitled An Unbelievable Story. And those who are from this Asian part, I mean Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Nepal, you know the story of that wedding ceremony. I know because it happened with us as well. So that was related with our personal life. So Arun provided a humorous take on that heavy subject of race, that in importance of acceptance despite difference. That speech won him the prestigious title of World Champion of Public Speaking. An accomplished speaker, prior to the 2019 championship, and also earned second place in the International Speech Contest in 2016. Giving a speech has came to known simply 57-word title, my goodness. And when he became champion, that was only 3-word title. That was the shift. Transitions. I mean, one time you take action, you do not become champion. That's the lesson from Arun's life story as well. Oddly enough, Arun considers himself to be one of the most introverted people you can meet. How can an introverted person become champion in public speaking? I don't know. Today we are going to learn that, because public speaking and storytelling were extroverted activities he never thought he would possess. However, with hard work, dedication, and a team of invaluable supporters, Arun has become proficient in both skills, has learned to balance his innate innovation with flashes of extroversion. Storytelling and public speaking have not only led Arun to engage audience at Fortune 100 companies such as Vanguard, JP Morgan, Chase, Wells Fargo, notably universities such as Temple, Drexel, University of Pennsylvania, but have also allowed Arun to travel to countries around the world, including Taiwan, Malaysia, India, and extremely foreign land known as Canada. I mean, COVID-19 has stopped him from visiting, or else half of the world would be visited. But that gave us the opportunity to have him among us, because he wouldn't visit Bangladesh, I'm sure. But this time, due to COVID, pandemic, we got the chance. We are lucky, we are fortunate we have him among us. So without wasting time, I'd like to introduce and welcome, hand over the session to our speaker, Beverly, 2019 World Champion of Public Speaking, Beverly.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Jamal. And thank you everyone for your warm welcome. I am so glad to be with you virtually today. World Champion of Public Speaking. That is something that I wrote down on a piece of paper back in 2012. I wanted to become the world champion of public speaking. Little did I know what that would entail. After competing for the first time in 2012, I quickly learned that it's not just enough to get up and speak to your audience. You had to give them something of value. I learned the qualities of an effective mentor and how instrumental a mentor can be to your growth. In 2014, I started to play around with different styles. 2015, I found a style of my own, a style that I took on to 2016 and almost came to becoming the world champion of public speaking then. But it was also the year that I learned that even though people think you gave a great message, if you are not personally satisfied with your own performance, that is in itself a setback. In 2017, I focused on execution of my speech. In 2018, I could not get out of my district that year, but I was satisfied because I was going to focus one more time on growth. In 2019, that's exactly what I did. And I was able to come home with this lucite trophy that you see before you. Now, lucite is a type of plastic, but I do feel that saying lucite trophy sounds a lot better than saying plastic trophy. But now I am the world champion of public speaking. So many people know who I am. And now that so many people know who I am, I've noticed that there's a different challenge, a challenge of interacting with tons of people, interactions that honestly drain me because I am an introvert. There are times where I sit down, I look at all of the messages in my social media and in my email box, and I say, please let the 2020 world champion come as soon as possible. Get this attention off of me. But I sit back and reflect. And I think about that goal that I originally wrote down in 2012 and all of the growth that happened from 2012 to 2019 and up until now. And I realized that it is my responsibility as a world champion to keep engaging, to keep speaking to the masses of Toastmasters and around the world, to share with them my experience. I sit back and I'm thankful to be the world champion of public speaking. But now I'm writing out a new goal. And that goal is to share my knowledge with all of you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is just a quick story about my journey and my responsibility as a world champion of public speaking. Storytelling is fundamental to my style of speaking and fundamental to a lot of other people's style of speaking because humans are wired for story. One of the reasons why you probably came to this session was because you wanted to know an answer to a simple question. how can you tell a better story? The answer is actually quite simple, but it's not always easy. You see, it takes some time, it takes some progress. Today, I hope to start you off on that process, on that journey to become a better storyteller and to tell a better story. My objective today is to give you tips and tricks on how to create better stories and how you can write out better stories. But before we go into the session, I do have some foundations to lay out. First, let's start with some expectations. 1, you are not going to be an expert in storytelling by the end of this session. I wish I was that good, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, I just am not. I cannot take you from beginner to master of storytelling in about 40 minutes. If I could do that, I assure you I would be a very, very, very rich man. And right now, I am not a very, very rich man. Secondly, none of the concepts and tips that I give you today are new. But with that being said, they are time tested. They do work. And I know personally from experience that they do. Which leads me to my last expectation, that everything that I share with you today can be used starting right now, today. Now, those are the expectations. Let's cover some rules. I know you're probably thinking, wow, Aaron, who actually makes a rule for their presentation? You're looking at them right here. Number 1, take notes. Even though I have slides here, you will notice that they are very minimal. I much prefer you to write things out for yourself because that is the best way that you can absorb information from my perspective. Next, be prepared to participate. Again, if I ask you to write something down, write something down. If I ask you to put something in the chat, put something in the chat. I don't want you to just sit there and listen to me talk and talk and talk. I want you to actually learn and absorb this information. Next, please keep yourself on mute at absolutely all times. Write down your questions for the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Lastly, let's have fun. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, please type into the chat, yes or no. Can you follow these rules? Okay, we have 1 yes, really? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, get your fingers moving. Type in yes or no. Can you follow these rules? There we go, there we go. All right. Then let's get started. How can you find good stories and messages? We're going to go through some activities, and this is part of that participation. I want you to actually do these activities, but as you're doing these particular activities, I don't want you to think too hard. I love the sayings that say you create drunk and you edit sober. Now, I am not saying that you need to go out and get an alcoholic beverage and consume that in order to create something. No, Aaron is not telling you to really literally get drunk. No. What I am saying is that when you are in the process of creating, especially for a story, you don't want to limit yourself. You don't want to filter your creative processes. Let everything just flow out, the first things that come to your mind. This will be really useful because a lot of people, they want to tell the greatest story of all time in the first draft. That doesn't happen. It takes time and it takes processes to build the stories over time for them to become masterpieces. Right now, we are going to take a minute and I want you to write down 10 subjects that you are knowledgeable of. Anything that you're knowledgeable of, anything that you can cook, anything that you can physically do, anything. Write down 10, 1 minute. Now, go. As you're writing down these things, I just want to say that it's possible that you may have more than 10, and that's great. Write down more than 10. The idea is just to write down all of these ideas as fast as you possibly can. I don't want your pen or your pencil to stop moving or your fingers to stop moving across that keyboard. Keep on writing. We have about 30 seconds left. All right. Now, you don't have to share these with everyone. You can keep them to yourself. If you want to type in 1 or 2 in the chat, feel free to do so. Maybe it can spark other people to have ideas of what to write. But we're going to move on to the next activity. So for another minute, I want you to write down 10 lessons that you have learned throughout your life. 10 lessons that you have learned throughout your life. I don't care if it was something like tying your shoes or learning how to put on your shirt the right way. I don't care what was a lesson that you learned. But as you are writing this out, and again, don't allow your pen or your pencil to stop as I'm talking here. Think about the people who helped you along the way. The people who taught you these different lessons. Was it a teacher? Was it a parent? Was it one of your own children? Think about this as you write down these 10 lessons, and I will give you 30 more seconds for this activity. Again, if you have more than 10, great. If you have less than 10, that's fine. Do not aim for perfection, just aim for progress. You can always come back to these activities at a later time. 10 more seconds. All right, next activity, moving right along. 10 successes in your life. 10 successes in your life. 1 minute. These don't have to be big successes. It could be a job promotion. It could be buying a new car. It could be buying a new pair of shoes. Any success that you can think of, something that you worked hard to achieve. Give you 30 more seconds. All right, moving along. Now, we're going into more emotion now. Emotions are a little bit more tricky because some people are less emotional than others, or they don't want to display as much emotion as other people. So that's fine. So we're going to drop down the quota to 5. List out 5 funny things that you can remember. I don't care whether it was something small again, or whether it was something great. I don't care if it was for another person or whether it was you. List down anything that you found funny. TV show, anything at all. 30 more seconds. All right, moving down the line. Again, if you haven't figured out 5, that's perfectly fine. You can come back to it later. 5 inspiring moments. Write down any moment where you felt that you were inspired, that just motivated you to act. This could be something that you heard. Maybe it was one of the former world champions of public speaking or another international speech contest, something that you saw on YouTube. 5 inspiring moments. Twenty more seconds. And again, you're just writing down the first things that come into your head. Do not limit yourself. Do not put a filter on the creation process. Next, list out 5 moments that made you sad or any other type of emotion that is related to sadness, anything that may have made you depressed, anything that may have really drained you emotionally, something that made you heartbroken. Write down these moments. First things that come into your head. Do not allow your pencil or pen to stop moving. Do not allow your fingers to stop moving across the keyboard. 20 more seconds. All right. 5 moments that made you happy or gave you great joy, made you proud, something that sparked an emotion like happiness. I personally can think of one moment that made me extremely happy. I'm pretty sure we all know what that was. And again, do not limit yourself. Do not try to think, well, what is the happiest moment that I've ever had in my life? And let me think about that. No, don't think about it. Just write it down. Anything that comes to your mind. Don't sit there and try to edit at this point. All right, 10 more seconds. Okay, now, here's what I want you to do. Out of everything that you listed, or actually in this case, go to those first 10 subjects of knowledge that you have. And I want you to put an E next to any topic where you feel that you are the expert. You have subject matter expertise about this particular subject. And when it comes to being an expert, my definition of an expert is that you have knowledge that many other people do not have. For instance, if you are a parent, you have expertise of being a parent because everybody doesn't have that experience. If you know how to cook something, put that down. Just write an E next to any subject where you feel that you are an expert. 20 more seconds. All right. Now, go through all of the other moments, and I want you to put a P next to anything that you are passionate about. Anything that you've written during any of these activities, I want you to put a P next to anything that you are passionate about. Meaning that the first thing that came into your head when I gave you the prompt was this one moment of your life. And you were so excited for this one moment. And you are excited to share this moment with other people. Something like that is what you will put a P next to because you are passionate about it. Give you 20 more seconds for this. And also, passion doesn't necessarily mean just a passion of happiness. Passion could be something that you want to bring value, even though the moment was personally sad for you. But you're passionate about it because it's a lesson that you want to share with an audience or with a listener. So 5 more seconds. All right. So what was the purpose of doing this activity? Well, there were multiple reasons why we did this activity, and I alluded to it a little bit before. One of the purposes of doing the activity that we did and the time span that we did it was to help you with your story creation. A lot of people, again, say, I want to create the perfect story, but in order to get the perfect story, you need to have a story. I did not give my world championship speech a day after I wrote it out for the first time. That speech, that story was crafted over a year and a half of me looking at the content, reading it over and over again, finding out what worked with a different audience and what didn't. And I crafted that story over that period of time and with that process. I did not create a masterpiece in one sitting. Most people cannot do that. So don't put the pressure on yourself to be a master storyteller and have a master story in one go. It takes time. It takes dedication. You have to love and nurture your story, just like you have to love and nurture your children. The other reason why we did this activity was to truly find out what topics you can actually talk about. A lot of people say, I don't know what to talk about. Well, if you did this activity, guess what? You have at least a few subjects that you know that you are knowledgeable of, and some of which you feel that you are an expert in. If you did this activity, you have prompts for many, many different stories that have happened throughout your life. You have a story to tell. Again, it's just going to take some time to make it shine. Now, when it comes to making a great story that's relatable, it all comes down to one word: characters. If you truly want a story that resonates with your audience, if you truly want to tell a story that connects with the audience, you need to have a strong character. And the strongest character that you can talk about, the greatest character that you can put into your story is you. A personal story, you've heard it before, is one of the best ways to connect with your audience. From this point on, as you are creating and refining your stories or thinking about your stories, I want you to stop thinking of yourself as the speaker and start thinking about yourself as a character in the story that you are trying to tell. You have to think like the character in the story, not like the speaker who is telling the story. Because again, you're going to connect more with your audience if you tell a personal story with a strong character. But even if you make the character yourself, the main character yourself, even if you tell your personal story, is that truly enough? Not necessarily. To build a strong character in your story, the character should go through a strong character arc. This is sort of a part of the plot, but it's focused on a single character. There are different questions that you can ask yourself to make your character stronger. One of my favorite story arcs is in the movie Toy Story. Just quick yes or no, has anybody seen the movie Toy Story? Anybody at all? It's one of my favorite movies of all time. If you say that you have not seen it, you are absolutely going to break my heart. Anybody, have you seen the movie Toy Story? Great. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. I have to say that yesterday I saw a whole bunch of no's and it really depressed me. But for those of you who haven't seen Toy Story, I'm going to give you a warning, spoiler alert. So you can plug your ears until I give you a thumbs up signal. I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, if you haven't covered your ears, spoiler. Toy Story, the main character arc that I really was involved in was the character of Woody. Woody was a toy that could come to life, and he was the top toy. He was owned by a kid named Andy, and he loved Andy. He was the top toy. That was his life every day. That is until everything changed when another toy came into the picture named Buzz Lightyear. And all of a sudden, Woody was no longer the top toy. Over time, he went through a period of jealousy, a period of rage, and a period of loss. Over time, though, he started to realize that it wasn't just about being a top toy. He just wanted to be loved by his child. He wanted to be there for the child that he felt that he was made for. And then by the end, Woody and Buzz become friends. And Woody, even though he may not have been the top toy anymore, he was still content. And that was his character arc. That was his starting point and his finishing point in the story. And Woody was a great relatable character because he had a lot of relatable emotions that people could resonate with. You can do the same thing for your characters, but there are some questions that you need to answer. The first question that you need to answer is, who is the character? This is easy. We've already established it. It is you. You are the character, the main character in the story. And when you tell your story, you should tell it from your perspective. Now, you can tell a story about somebody else, but you can do that through your perspective. That's more of an advanced storytelling technique. And maybe one day we can go into that, but there is a way. But for the most part, you want to tell a story that is from your own perspective as the character in the story. Next, you need to establish, what does the character want? Using Toy Story as the example. Oh, and sorry for the people who may have been covering their ears. That's your signal that you can uncover your ears. I apologize that you had your fingers in your ears for that long. But what does the character want? The character of Woody wanted to be top toy. That's what he wanted. And then there's going to be some challenge. There's going to be some conflict. What is keeping the character from getting what they want? What problem does the character have? This conflict is also critical to the story because this is going to be the thing that gets the audience to say, oh, wow, what's going to happen next? Conflict is almost just as important as the character. Without conflict, you don't really have a story. You just have a bragging moment where one day I wanted to become the world champion of public speaking, and then I became it. The end. How boring is that? Moving on. Who or what helps the character? We may be familiar with the term hero story, where another party in the story comes in, interacts with the character, and they help the character learn the lesson or they provide the answer. But you can also have an event influence the character. One of the things that happened in the movie Toy Story was that Woody actually went through an experience. There wasn't necessarily a hero that swooped in and saved the situation. He went through a series of events. You can do it through a hero as another character in the speech, or it can be through an event. But whatever it is, a hero character or an event, it's going to influence you as the character in your story. And you need to tell us how it's doing that. Next, simple. What do they do? Now, you can look at this question multiple ways. What do they do could mean, what does the hero character do to influence the main character, you, in the story? Or what does the main character do by interacting with the influential event? Basically, you're going to say what happened in the plot. As a result of this person helping, or as a result of this event happening, this happened. And then something else happened. And then something else happened. So you're just moving along with the plot. This is the part where you can actually add in maybe an additional twist. Again, that's more advanced storytelling. We're staying to the basics, but this is the moment where you can add that twist, that maybe it wasn't this one conflict. Maybe the real problem was this other conflict. So for Toy Story, the problem wasn't necessarily Buzz Lightyear, the new toy. It was more so an internal conflict with Woody himself. What happens at the conclusion? Does the character get what they want? Do they not get what they want? Are they okay with that? Which leads me into the last point. What is the change in the character? So you have a character that wanted something at the beginning. By the end of it, do they still want it? Do they have it? Do they believe that it's still as important? This is something that I demonstrated a little bit before, where I wanted to be the world champion of public speaking at the beginning, and then I go through my journey. But now that I am the world champion of public speaking, the change is that I now have a sense of responsibility as the world champion of public speaking. That was my character change. Mind you, it's not as strong as the example of Toy Story, but I'm trying not to deliver any spoilers for those who haven't seen it. Please, go see it. It's a great story. But for your character, the character of you in your story, there has to be some change. The change could be that even though you got the goal, you realize that it's better to give the benefits to other people. So it's not a goal that you're keeping for yourself, it's a goal that you're giving to others. This is the type of change that you want to see in the character. This is the type of change that people will resonate with, that people will understand and say, you know what? I like that story. I want to cheer for this character. Then, as a speaker, now it's time for you to think like a speaker again. What is the message? What is the moral of this story? This is where you, as the speaker, tell people what the purpose of this story was. Think about my 2019 World Championship of Public Speaking speech. I told the story, and then I gave you the conclusion of the story. I told you that Brandon had to pay money for the shoes, and then I told you about how I changed as a character from thinking that I wasn't accepted, or I felt different and unaccepted, and how I felt accepted at the end through the game that was played. But then I came out of it and gave you the message that we need to accept one another despite our differences. That was the message that I gave to you as the speaker. So as a speaker, you want to tell a story, but remember, you're giving a speech. The biggest difference that I know of for a speech and a story is that a story has an implicit message. You don't have to explicitly say what that message is. It's really more understood, or it's for the audience to make of it what they believe. A speech, on the other hand, has an explicit message, or should have an explicit message. And that is where you are telling the audience what your story was about, what your message meant, what the audience needs to take away. That's the biggest differentiator. Now, am I saying that you absolutely have to go through all of these questions to get to a strong character arc? No. if you've seen me present before, you've probably heard me say, there is no such thing as the way. There is only a way. It is up to you to find your way. I showed you my way. Now it's time for you to find your way. With that being said, let's now go into questions and answers. And I know that we will likely not be able to get through every single question. And in that case, you can always follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube, more so LinkedIn and Instagram, because you can send me a direct message and I will answer you. Also on YouTube, I release content. Right now, I'm releasing more content about how to compete in the international speech contest and things that I learned in my journey to become world champion. If you are interested in that and getting some speaking tips, you can check me out on YouTube, or you can just reach out to me by email. With that being said, let us start the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So folks, if you have any questions, you may direct it right over there. We do have questions while you got the registration. So I'm asking from there what can be asked. Around one question. Do stories should always be related to yourself? Can you narrate imaginary stories for ourselves while giving a speech?
The quick answer to this is yes, absolutely. You can definitely have imaginary characters. This is why the genre of fictional writing exists. However, if you want your audience to connect to you as a speaker, you need to tell them a personal story. And it can't be personal unless it's about you. So the answer is yes, you can tell a good story, and it could be a engaging story, a story that sparks the imagination of the listener, but will it necessarily connect the audience or the listener to you as the speaker? That's the question that you have to answer for yourself.
Okay, one more question. Why to add humor in the character arc?
So humor is always tricky, and people always think that you absolutely have to have humor in your stories or your talks, but humor is not always needed. Now, I always like to have an emotional roller coaster in my presentations. That's the style that I've become accustomed to. But in that emotional roller coaster, I don't always have to have humor. If you take, for example, my 2016 speech, I put all of the humor in the first half of the speech, and then the second half of the speech, it was much more somber. But I also allowed more moments of levity, meaning that I didn't have you thinking about a tragedy or thinking about a sad moment, but I helped you with some inspiration. The story that I told at the end of that 2016 speech was a story about a girl named Michelle. And I took you down emotionally when I told you how she was struggling with her table topic question. But then I inspired you. I raised up the emotion and brought some levity to the story by telling you that she remembered her mother saying that she believed in her. And that was the greatest moment of her life. So you don't always need humor, but you should have levity. But to answer the question directly of where you can put it in, where did it naturally occur in the story? Was there a moment that really made you laugh, or when you think about it, it makes you laugh? The first place that I always look for is where the humor occurred naturally in the progression of the story, in the real life progression of the story. So if there was a moment in your story where, let's just say you tripped and you fell, and then you just sat there laughing at yourself, well, that's probably a natural piece of content to put into the story if you want to add humor. So think about how the humor came about naturally first.
Thank you very much. The next question, that is a kind of supplementary question of your previous one. It is written by Alpha Shakir. She is our running District 41 international speech champion. So she wrote, if we are telling a story that happened to someone else, how can we make it more impactful as the character is not you? Is there any, phrases, magical phrases to create that impact?
So when you are telling a story about someone else, it still has to be told from your perspective. Now, for instance, I told, and actually I'm going to give you two different examples. So one that's going to actually go against what I'm saying, and one just to help you with the personal story. So I can tell a story about somebody who is competing in the international speech contest. Now, this year, obviously, I'm not competing in the international speech contest. But if I were to meet somebody or coach somebody, I know the stress that they're going through. So the way that I would approach that is that when I was looking into this person's eyes, I could see that they were nervous. And I remember that same nervousness when I competed. I knew that they would be going through a lot of late nights and early mornings, working on their speech, trying to craft it a certain way. And then they would stand on stage in front of hundreds of people and be judged by people that they do not know. And then they would have to wait for the contest results. And I know if they're sitting there waiting for their name to be called and it doesn't get called, I know what it feels like to have your heart drop. So that's a way that you can tell a story about somebody else. Obviously, I can make it more personal by actually giving a name of the different characters. But again, it's telling their story from my perspective, because I don't know exactly what they're thinking. I don't know exactly what they're doing. I'm not them. So that's one strategy that you can take to tell a story about somebody else. Tell it from your perspective or what you think they may be feeling or doing.
Thank you.
Oh, and sorry, I did say I was going to give you another example that was a little bit contradictory to what I just said, but this goes to show you that there are multiple ways to do it. The story that I told, one of the stories that I told to get to the World Championship in 2019 was a family story. So that's a story that's completely not, one of those stories was completely not about me. It was about my mother, her brother, and her sister when they were children. Obviously, I'm not born yet, but I could reiterate that story. So that was a story that I told, but keep in mind that there was no emotional connection to any of those people. I couldn't make people feel inspired by those children because that wasn't me. Or it would have been really tough for me to make a story that was going to be inspiring using children who were not me. It was great for humor, but not great for an emotional connection other than just telling a funny story.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. One question came while completing the registration: how to effectively add voice modulation and drama in a storytelling?
My first tip is to don't overdo it. When we hear vocal variety and vocal tones, we think that we have to go through all of this different voice modulation. It's not that serious. I rarely do voices when I give a speech. I tried it one year. That was one of the tests that I did back in 2014. It was an okay speech, but not all that great. But I ended up regretting doing it because I felt that I did too much. It was way too over dramatized. And you will quickly learn something about me. I am not a fan of over dramatization. So when it comes to voice modulation and vocal variety, you can work on volume, you can work on pacing, and those two can really take you far. But don't try to use tones that you don't naturally use in your everyday conversation. One of my favorite pieces of feedback that I get is that, Aaron, you are so conversational when you speak. And that's because I'm just using the natural tones that I use when I talk to people. So think about how you have a conversation with your friends. You don't say, and then one day I went outside. And then I saw my friends. And I was overjoyed. Nobody talks like that. So why are you talking like that when you are giving a speech? Keep it simple. Keep it natural. Think about how you naturally talk to your friends and family and go from there.
If a situation demands, like in your speech in 2019, you said, no! I mean, that when the truth wanted to take back from you. So that expression you made. So if situation demands, though it doesn't go with my personality, so is it accepted?
Mm-hmm. So, okay. And here's the thing. When we say personality, what does that mean? If we're saying that Aaron Beverly has never yelled before, no, that's absolutely not true. I've yelled plenty of times. And that is something that I have naturally done in a certain situation. Now, but that was me playing with volume, which is, again, something simple. But throughout the majority of the story, it was just simple, which makes a use of volume like that more impactful because it's going to stand out more. And that's really what made it humorous. Had I been yelling out all across the speech, that line would not have been as humorous. But in addition to that, I want to give you a piece of feedback that may seem controversial, but it's really not. When you are giving a speech, you need to learn how to become an actor, but not just an actor, a good actor. Now, I do not believe that acting is bad for a speech. Bad acting is bad for a speech. How can you practice good acting? By trying to evoke the emotion that you felt in that moment. So when I was giving that line, I was thinking about that moment where they're trying to take the shoes from me and I'm not giving them these shoes. So my emotion that comes out is more natural. Again, we come to that word natural, and it's driven by the emotion that I felt as of that day. That's a method that actors actually use. They will try to evoke the emotion of the character that they may be playing, and then they will allow themselves to act it out from that emotion. So use the emotion as the base to act more naturally, especially in those moments where you really want to stand out with some type of vocal variety or body movement.
Okay, thank you very much. And one friend from Cambodia, he wrote about, we know that in public speaking is written and scripted. He wrote a very specific question like, how should I tailor my story for a multicultural audience?
When it comes to a multicultural audience, you have to, one, talk about a concept that is going to be universally understood. For me, acceptance despite difference, that's something that can be universally understood because most countries around the world have problems with accepting people for race reasons, religious reasons, multiple reasons why people may be discriminated against or not included in another group. That was something that can be universally understood. Something else that can be universally understood is the concept of struggling to reach a goal. So I don't know, for instance, the issue with having a bad hair day, at least not anymore. But I do know the stress that you can feel for wanting to look your best. That's something that I can universally understand. So you have to know your audience and find out what it is that can be understood across multiple cultures. And it's going to be more general, yes. But if you try to go more granular and you try to talk more about what it is that specifically happened to you in your certain region, you're going to lose a lot of people because they may not be familiar with the terminology or your local culture. So you have to keep that in mind when you're talking to an international audience.
That's great. Now, the next question from your personal life. What were some of the major roadblocks to developing stories you told, and how did you overcome those?
The biggest challenge, honestly, for me was doing what I told you that you should not do. I would always try to create the perfect story in one sitting. And this was really stressful. And worse than that, it really hindered my creation process. So when I tell you that you don't need to write it out in one go, I'm telling you that because I experienced it, because I sat down and stressed about how I was going to write out this story and why this story wasn't good enough. Another thing that I did that was really a detriment to me was trying to compare my story to somebody else's story. As I started creating my stories, I would compare it to Dana JF, the 2014 world champion. And I would say, it's not as good as his. It doesn't matter if it's as good as his or not. I'm not competing against him, number one. And number two, he's not me and I'm not him. We have different stories. We have different ways of telling our story. So you have to be comfortable with who you are and be comfortable with the stories that you want to tell. Do not compare your story to someone else's.
Okay, that is my personal question to you. Like for me, how long should I try, or what should be the procedure of starting to prepare for international speech contest? Should I start writing diaries, stories, or what should be the procedure to start?
Yeah. Well, again, I will say that there's no such thing as the way. There is only a way, and you have to find your way. But for me, I will write down different stories. The World Championship speech that I gave in 2019 started off as a Facebook post, and it grew from there. I put it into my story file and I started to refine it. I put it into a keynote speech and I refined it more until I put it into my World Championship speech. So that was a process that took, the wedding happened in 2018, and that went for over a year. So that was a year to create that story. For one of my semifinal speeches, I had that story prepared years in advance. I would say by the time that I made it to the semifinals in 2013, and I did not get out of the semifinals that year, I already started thinking about a story, about family stories. That was back in 2013. I didn't actually finish refining that story and giving it to a audience in an international speech contest until 2018. So it takes time, and it's really up to you to determine how much time that takes. But I journal, I write things down, I put things up on YouTube and not YouTube, Facebook and Instagram to see how it resonates with people. That's really what I do, but there is no one way.
Okay, the next question, is it better to start a speech on a low, then build it up to leave the audience on a high?
So again, it depends on you. If you've had success doing that before, then great. Now, one thing to consider is the emotional state of the audience at that time. Are they super energized? Then you may not suffer as much by bringing them low a little bit, but if you bring them too low, it may be a conflict with the emotion. So there are many things that you have to take into consideration. And as you become more experienced as a speaker, you'll be able to read a room and say, okay, they seem like they're a little bit down, so maybe I won't start initially with my sad story. Maybe instead I'll tell a few humorous stories to start with, and then I'll lead them into the sadder story, take them back down before bringing them back up again with some more inspiration. So that's the mindset that I have when I'm trying to read a room and read the audience, but it really depends on you. There is no way that I can say that you absolutely must start with high energy or you absolutely must start with low energy or being somber in your story or being happy and joyful in your story. It really depends.
Okay. Next question, how long or short should the length of the story be?
As long as it needs to be. So when you are creating a story, you want to tell enough to move the plot along. If you have moved the plot along, you don't need to add anything extra. One of the pieces of feedback that I get for my stories is that they're tight. And that's because I do not waste words. If I feel that I have made the point and I have moved the plot along, then I don't need to tell you that something else happened alongside of what I already told you. I just told you this happened. I went to the wedding. I grabbed the shoes. I sat down. That's all I needed to tell you to move that plot along. I didn't need to tell you that I got to the wedding. I noticed how vibrant everybody was in their gowns and their outfits. I didn't want to tell you about how the bride was adorned in all of this jewelry. You didn't need to know all of that. I just needed to move the plot along and for the main point of the story. So as long as I can move that plot, that's all I need to tell you. So as long as it needs to be to move the plot along.
One interesting story. Can I make a lot of money from public speaking?
I think you only need to look at the top public speakers in the world to really know that and know that to be true. You absolutely can, but it takes work. And how do you get there? I have no clue because I'm not there yet.
How to incorporate the stories in sales pitch?
How to incorporate stories in a sales speech is really going to be your before and afters, or your, what's the word? Action and consequence stories. So your before after, let's say you're trying to sell a weight loss product. Well, you're probably going to tell a story about how you used to be oversized and then you did this routine and now you are fit. You're able to do things that you've never been able to do before. You can, if you're a guy, you can go outside without a shirt and not feel self-conscious. So that's the type of story that you would tell if you want to sell something. So you're selling not the actual thing. You're not telling people, if you buy this product, it's made from the most organic material in the world and it's filled with superfoods and any of the health talk that people talk about today. You can tell I'm not really experienced with health stuff, but you don't sell that. You sell your experience by telling your story. And again, in that example, it was a personal story of a person who went through this trial of being overweight, and then they did this action by using this product, and now the benefit is they're able to do all of these things that they weren't able to do before. That's how they are selling with their story. They're not telling you about the product itself. They're telling you how they benefited from the product.
Is it okay if we add some imaginative facts in personal story to make it more attractive to the audience?
Depends how imaginary. Now, for me, I will change a character's name. I will exaggerate certain reactions, but I'm not going to create an entirely new scene that did not happen. That's just me personally as a speaker. I will always base all of my stories on truth. I do not want people to come up to me and ask me, well, what happened to this person? What happened to that person? And then tell them that, oh, well, that person didn't really exist. I don't want to tell people that. And to me, that makes me feel like a fraud as a speaker. I want to keep my stories based on truth. And you can always change a name. You can always exaggerate a character. For me, I also like to consolidate my characters. So the character of the ominous smiler was not just a single bridesmaid in real life. She was a combination of 4 different bridesmaids. But each of those moments, like being threatened to say, hey, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, was said by one of them. Pulling the shoes from me was from another one. So there were multiple people that were combined into one, I guess you could call it imaginary character, but that's the extent that I take it. Everything is based on truth.
Okay. Most probably last question, or we can take one more. This came from non-Toastmaster from corporate. How to convince experienced and senior participants having much knowledge but not ready to accept the speech of the speaker?
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
How to convince experienced and senior participants having much knowledge but not ready to accept the speech of the speaker.
That's a good one. Well, when it comes to speaking to people who are more senior than you are, it's going to be really difficult sometimes to tell them knowledge that they don't want to hear. So you really need to stick to your facts. You really need to show them the data. Show them that you did your research. Show them that you did the work to put this presentation together. And if you can do that in a clean and articulate way, even if they may not accept your proposal, they won't condemn you as the speaker or the presenter. So you can present to them all of the facts, you can show them the data, show them that you did the research, and then give them the decision or what you recommend that they do. But at the end of the day, I've learned, I'm a project manager at JP Morgan Chase. I have learned that if a senior manager wants to move one way, they're just going to move that way. It doesn't matter what you tell them. They are just going to move that way no matter what suggestion you give them. But show them that you did your work, that you did your homework and did your research. And that is showing them that you are a person who knows what you're talking about.
One more question, last one. How to create an elegant story without losing authenticity and honesty?
So how to tell an engaging story without losing authenticity?
How to create an elegant story without losing authenticity and honesty. If I want to create one.
Yeah, I guess the word that's tripping me up is elegant. It depends on what you define as elegant in your speech, but for me, authenticity comes in my style, how I deliver my story. I tried my best to deliver my story as if I was just a friend at the bar or at the dinner table telling you this humorous story. The stories that got me to the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2019 were told around the dinner table. So they had already had the dinner table test. I wanted it to come across as authentic in my delivery. When it comes to the actual delivery of your story, what I would suggest is that, one, you use the natural language that you typically use. And when I say natural language, I don't mean like your primary language if English is your secondary language. What I mean is that if you are speaking English with your friends, how do you normally use English with your friends? Now, does that need to be polished up a little bit? Does that mean you need to slow down a little bit? Yeah, probably. That's what I do when I talk. I actually slow down. This is not my normal speaking rate. But I try to keep it as conversational, as close to my conversational style when I'm talking to friends. Same thing with body movement. So again, I'm not a big fan of over dramatization, whether it's through verbal or whether it's through physical. I don't like over dramatization. I'd rather be natural with my body movement, just as I am natural with my voice. Another one is your word choice. Use words that you would typically use in your everyday speech. Don't add 5 or 6 syllable words just because you think they will make you sound smart. I use very simple words. If you were to write out my speech, you will be able to probably count on less than your 10 fingers how many words have more than 4 syllables. It's because I try to keep it as simple as possible. And for me, keeping it simple, keeping it as close to my natural speaking style is how I keep it authentic.
Wow. Great, thank you. I know questions will not be finished because a lot of questions are there. We couldn't take much. And folks, those who are interested to ask more questions, yes, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, you can comment there. See there, out in Beverly, you can directly, you can see the location, write it down and ask him whatever the questions you have in your mind, and you will get the answers, of course. So thank you very much, Beverly, for your wonderful session as well as for question answering session. So that was in for my part. I would like to acknowledge some of my guests, my friends, those who privately inboxed me that they are here. People from Australia, USA, Canada, China, Korea, India, Nepal, Singapore, a lot of countries. Still, I cannot remember all the names. I mean, the inbox came there from there. Thank you very much for joining. Now I'd like to hand over the session to our host, HM Mainuddin Ahammed. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jamal, and thank you, Arun, for such a wonderful session. Let's show our big hand to Arun. So this is really great pleasure for us. So this is our third session, and I believe we'll continue in coming days with other champions. And this is really appreciable. And we invited guests from different districts, and you joined the session. It's really appreciable for all the leaders. And from Area L5, Division L. So here we see our special guest, District Parliamentarian Shubhan sir. Would you please share a few words, Shubhan sir? Shubhan Sakia, sir.
Thank you, Toastmaster Mainuddin. Thank you for this opportunity. I always wanted to be in a session where Arun was speaking, and today I got the opportunity. So thank you, Area 5, for organizing this. I was glued to what Arun was talking about and mesmerized with how he went through very, very critically and very easily, I would say, as to how to create stories. Because I also believe that stories are the heart of what you want to share. And one of the finer points that he picked up upon, which I strongly believe in, is that you do not want to dramatize when you are sharing a story. And it is not telling, but it is sharing a story. And you do it in the way you are making a conversation with your friends, families, and whoever you are sharing that story with. And that gives that connect. Amazing sort of a workshop way in which he gave us how to, what to do on creating these stories. And I have a lot of takeaways. Thank you very much, Arun, for this. I'm sure that Toastmasters in Nepal would want to also invite you over. And I would take this opportunity to once again thank all the organizers for doing an absolutely wonderful job. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have our district champion, Alpha Sakia. Do you want to talk a few minutes, 2 minutes? Alpha? Okay, so she may not be here. So we are very close to our session. And now I'd like to invite our special person who is a dedicated Toastmaster, not only dedicated, also DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster.
Alpha Sakia cannot unmute herself. She wants to talk.
Okay. Can you mute her, unmute her?
I'm not getting her at this moment.
Yeah, I'm mute. I'm unmute. Can you hear me? I'm audible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. So, first of all, I would like to say thanks to Aaron Beverly on behalf of Division L. Division L is Bangladesh. So, on behalf of Division L, and I can say on behalf of District 41 also, for joining this session and for giving us something very special that we can take this to our home. We are actually staying at home. And we are saying that pandemic is bad, but I feel pandemic is not so bad, because this pandemic actually help us to be habituated with this kind of session. So Zoom, using the Zoom platform or online platform. And that's why we get the chance to hear from Aaron Beverly. And I'd like to say thanks to our organizer, Area L5 Director, Toastmaster Jamal Uddin Jamy, our DCP team member, Toastmaster Mainuddin, and every representative from all districts. I see many participants from many districts, like District 36, 38, and many districts, District 41 also. Thanks everyone to join here. And I have a little message for Mr. Aaron Beverly. You see that I'm wearing a Punjabi. Okay, so I think you can remember your champion speech. And in that speech, you were a Punjabi. I watched your speech. I am from Chittagong. This is a port city from Bangladesh. And if you get chance to visit Bangladesh anytime, it will be a great for you. It will be a great experience for you. And I like to say that if you get chance to visit Bangladesh, you must visit Chittagong. You will get many stories from our wedding in Chittagong, and that can be delivered in your future speech. So many stories, because Toastmaster Jamal Jamy is laughing. He's like, you know, that his wife is from Chittagong, so I think he has some great experience from his wedding also. So overall, I'd like to say thanks to everyone who attended the session, our organizer, and I think this kind of session is really helpful for everyone, not only for the speaker, not only for the contestant, but for everyone, because it's not necessarily that I'll give speech only the Toastmaster meeting or something like that, but it is something that I can say that it is helpful. It will be necessary, probably many more, but we don't know. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much also for inviting me here, and wish you all the best. Everyone, thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, our division director. I request you all to open your videos so that we can have a group photo.
Mainuddin, Alpha Shaki is here.
Oh, Alpha Shaki, you want? Okay.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay, I am. So you can unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Great. Thank you so much to the organizers for organizing such an amazing session by Aaron. It's always wonderful to listen to him, and also to all the champions who are out there. There's always something to take away. When Aaron started his session, I was like hooked and I was writing. I've like written, they're not complete, but thank you for the prompts, Aaron. They will turn out to be like interesting speeches, and it's like really inspiring and encouraging. I hope to turn them into a few speeches in the days to come. Thank you so much.
I wish you all the best, Alpha Sakia, for the coming contest. So let's have some photograph, and you may have some greetings. This is all informal session now. In next 3, 4, 5 minutes, you can have some discussion as you like most. And I am taking some photograph.
Take faster, please take photos. Please show your beautiful faces, people.